Day And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Lorelines. Happy Easter if you celebrate. If you don't, happy Spring Renewal, a holiday that we have marked since the beginning of humanity's rise as a social animal. Today I've got Neela and Kobe and Ayumi, and we are discussing Eureka. It's a few weeks late. Sorry for that. Anyway, we're back. Anyone in chat, have you done Eureka Orthos? And also, hi, everybody.
Not a bit.
Happy
but you
Sunday.
know why? Because I have a girlfriend who does deep dungeons, and she does them a lot, so I can't escape them.
That sounds like a good opportunity to be a subject matter expert on this topic.
That sounds like a subject matter that we once did a few years ago on Halloween, and I did the same thing, going through Palace of the Dead. I haven't gone through Heaven on High yet. What am I doing?
Yeah, it's a one-time clear. It's not too much of a commitment. I know you probably won't do it, but, you know, it's like 3 hours every couple of years.
Considering I am your vital source on Deep Dungeon, it may just happen.
Yeah, it's a fun ride. I mean, even you know, it's not that challenging. I did notice just mechanically in this Eureka, skipping ahead a bit, I don't know if it's just I'm desensitized to it because in the other content I'm already 99.99 ether pool, but in here I felt so weak, and I've tried it on 3 different jobs. I don't know if it's scaled a little bit differently, or if I'm just, you know, if it was always like this to start. You guys have an opinion on that?
It was not. The mechanics in this deep dungeon are far less forgiving. In particular, the one that draws you in and then kills you immediately. If you don't have 40 Aether Pool going in, you're pretty much toast.
The bombs in this content also are the kind that explode but don't die, and they still one-shot you, which is surprising.
Incredibly rude, really.
I got eaten by that. But anyway, I know it's going to be a little light today because it is a holiday, but thank you for everyone who is here. How about Ko? Ko Rabinta.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Ko. So Ko Rabinta has been around since ARR and was part of the original Noah expedition to the Crystal Tower. And I always had an issue with this in ARR because what happened was after the World of Darkness came out, Ko was just kind of standing in Mordona and was like, by the way, you woke up an Allegan soul that was, you know, dormant inside the Crystal Tower, and I just possessed this poor Makote. So her body's mine now, and you know, she's gone, basically, was the impression I got. And I was like, this is horrifying. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, she's just gone. by the way, go relive your memories every week of the Crystal Tower. Bring me some orbs of crystallized memory, and I'll give you your weekly garbage.
At least
And
up until the next expansion.
yeah, exactly. And so it was just kind of like this weird, like awkwardness where it was like, okay, it's Ko's body, but it's Noah, who the expedition was named after because they were this famous Allegan researcher who apparently just refuses to die. And so now we find out that Ko is actually still in there, and what's happening is that Noah, goes out, has party time, gets drunk off her ass, um, has lots of sex, and then kind of hands off the hangover and the wind down to Ko. And so Ko's probably just sounding crazy, and everyone's like, you know what, Ko, you suck. Bring
Lay
back
off the
Noah.
phone.
You are running over this in a very, very modern way.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. I didn't take any of these from it. I mean, obviously, the ethics of possessing someone's body are suspect, to say the least.
Well, we
To
had
put it
La Brea
mildly.
do that. We had La Brea do that to Thancred,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
this is just
we've
the
got
opposite.
we've got
But you know what? La Brea had the decency to leave.
we've also got Ardbert riding inside us, and he chose to do that. So
Yes.
See, during the so this is the quest text actually. Waken, you've braved Crystal Tower. Crystal Tower, yes. 'Twas there that Ko chanced upon the orb which harbored me. Awakened in an entirely new age, I was eager to abscond my stuffy home and stretch my legs, so to speak. So Ko and I came to an agreement. She would lend me her body from time to time, and in return, I would receive the honor of being her, and would in return would receive the honor of being my vessel. Fear not, this is nothing so base as void scent possession. I can leave this body whenever I want. But I did not seek you out to discuss the finer points of magic. No, there is something much more important we discuss.
I can
my
leave
new
whenever I
outfit.
want. It's been 10 years, but I can leave whenever I want.
Yeah, right.
I mean, a lot of this is off-screen, right? So it's a question of whether you just take the author's intent at its word or you analyze deeper. You're free to take choose your own adventure you'd like on that one. Absolutely.
Before you pass judgment, I must remind you that this arrangement was carried out under mutual agreement. I fully intend to relinquish control to her as soon as my work here is done, and it just so happens you may be able to help with that.
She lied to her.
Completely. How, in a strange turn of fate, Grahatia was awoken from his slumber in the Crystal Tower. How the Asian Fan Daniel, who set our star on a course towards the final days, was in fact Amon all along. She knew of everything.
Didn't bother telling us, rude.
But
Very rude. Not a fan.
if it was from there when we spoke with her in Mordona, and we learned all of this, that she decided to divulge her true nature, and she asked us basically to summon Grahatia after going over this, and she knew that he liked us a lot, but she also knew that he would be instrumental in getting us inside.
I
And
almost
this is
made a
where
joke
fun
about
begins.
this. I almost made a joke about this. This is Eureka Orthos, also known as Senpai doesn't notice Grahatia, once again.
Right.
All he wants is to go on an adventure, and we're like, nope, you can hang out. Thanks for letting us in the door, though. Appreciate it.
And it's funny because it's he mentions, what a pleasant surprise. I can't remember the last time you called me. Oh my. Well, we called you about maybe a month ago. Maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
He's just got a short memory.
I'm much more interested in you, my friend. Are you well? You aren't in some sort of trouble. You say the Archmagus Noah, inhabiting the body of a young researcher, has asked me to take you to the 8 Sentinels? Have I got it right? I'll be right there.
So Ko actually has a lorebook entry.
Yes. Do you have it up?
I do. The quote is, "My scholarly works are legend, my treatise of cosmos priceless, and my very name known throughout the world," which would be Noah, not Ko. Ko Rabanta is a 28-year-old researcher with the Suns who, when exploring the newly unearthed Crystal Tower complex, came upon the orb of mysterious origin. When she took it back to the sun's camp, she awoke the soul that slumbered within, Noah, the famed third astral era archmagus of the Aleg, and court-appointed instructor of Une and Doga of the imperial family. In that moment, Noah's spirit escaped its crystalline jail and flowed into Ko's body, taking possession of it as a temporary vessel. Ko and Noah are as different as North and South. So there was nothing about any agreement in the lore book here, but I do remember it being in the game. They're as different as North and South. Noah displayed great passion towards both her research and apprentices, and was known to off-behave with wild abandon. Indeed, it appears that the imprisonment of her spirit was the result of an uncontrolled bout of simple curiosity. So Noah just basically locked herself away by accident.
Effed around and found out.
Yeah, exactly. Ko, by contrast, is a woman as timid as she is shy. When the Archmagus returns control of her body, usually after an extended night of drink and debauchery, the Keeper of the Moon is in a constant state of fluster owing to the excess attention Noah commands while she's in control.
This is fucked
Awkward.
up.
That is incredibly fucked up. So it may have been a modern take, but it was an accurate take. So Noah drinks a lot and gives Ko the hangover. It's really messed up.
Yes. And then she goes on to explain that Ko's aptitude in the ethereal arts is almost non-existent. It was necessary for me to acquire the proper attire. Later, this is a little bit later when she dresses Ko in the very skimpy outfit rather than her robes. It was necessary for me to acquire the proper attire that I might be in some small way to make up for this deficiency. So you're saying
No,
you can't cast in robes?
No. In comparison to Noah's brilliant gifts, Ko is a stupid idiot child who doesn't know any better, and Noah clearly has to show her the way, by making her do things that she would never normally do.
Clearly.
It's pretty horrifying, actually. Even if, there was consent for the initial agreement, I don't think Noah exactly lined everything out. And now that, they're kind of cohabitating this single body.
Cohabit. Sorry.
Yeah, that was on purpose. But now that they're cohabitating in it's kind of this, well, I'm in and you can't kick me out now. I'm going to be the worst roommate ever. And there's nothing you can do about it. But in the long run, it's actually going to benefit you. Also, I can leave whenever I want. P.S. It's been 10 years. And she's actually like standing here smoking while she's sitting outside of the deep dungeon. That's not tobacco.
No, it's not. Amon would have clucked his tongue at the disapproval of the sight of me. Oh, I'm sure.
Amon needs to live a little.
Amon clucked his tongue at the sight of anyone, so that's not a high bar.
Alas, I had to appease Ko's preferences as well. Again, consent. Quote. She insisted the first few outfits I selected were much too gaudy, and eventually were landed on the compromise. Beauty truly is in the eye of the beholder.
Well, at least Ko has some input, because even though they laid out a very convenient line that she said, we reached an accord, everything after that was no.
All right, and then we kind of dive into what exactly we're doing. So to understand where we're heading, I must first tell you what came before. In the twilight of the Third Astral Era, when the Allegan Empire, at the height of its glory, a laboratory, was constructed beneath the Crystal Tower. There, the Empire's most sensitive research was conducted. The means of achieving eternal life and resurrection, clone technology, control mechanisms for the Icons, and the eventual completion of the Dalamud prototype. Those were but a few of many projects pursued deep under the earth, all in absolute secrecy with the full blessings and guidance of the royal family. It was dubbed Eureka Orthos by the Emperor himself, a fitting name for a place which would become a nexus of creation.
Yep,
Graha-
we're gonna make weapons that make weapons here, so that you can have weapons while you make weapons.
It was
Okay.
basically the same thing as I don't know how many people did Bosnia, but if you remember the Diablo armament, that too was an Allegan weapon. It was created as a husk for Voidsent, for captured Voidsent. Kind of like an augment. Harrier means to harass, to attack, so on and so forth. Eureka Grahatea says, Eureka, you can't mean what I think you mean. I believe you and Cryle are familiar with the Forbidden Land. When that island appeared suddenly in the waters to the far east, it was dubbed Eureka after the Allegan legend. The stories say that in the center of the vast labyrinth slums burrs a weapon of incomprehensible power.
Yep. And this is the original one that spawned the legend that the island was named after.
Yes, Ko says the legend has a hint of truth in it. The development of weapons was a main subject of research within Eureka Orthos. It comes as no surprise with that rumors of what transpired here would grow into the tales of which you speak. I know where it is, where we can gain entrance. My peerless knowledge of teleportation magic shall take us to the gates, and the royal blood flowing within Graha's veins shall open them. I would very much like you to once again set foot within these halls, where I refined and perfected the means of transferring my essence to and from various objects. Okay. Which brings me to my request. Would have you delve into the deepest regions of Eureka and drag out its secrets, kicking and screaming into today. With the flow of time within the Crystal Tower restored, the laboratory should be fully active, its unfinished experiments and long dormant security measures wandering aimlessly in search of intruders.
I forgot that inside the Crystal Tower was yet more time fuckery.
I hate it.
Always.
That almost makes it a kind of a dangerous subject to explore if time was not flowing normally out of the Crystal Tower and then we corrected it.
Yeah, that's a thing.
I guess that explains why we can do Alliance Roulette all the time.
Yep.
No. You're not actually doing it over and over. You're caught in a time loop. And you thought it was a grind.
No, it's not a time loop. It's a memory.
Yes.
We're just reliving the memory. For Ko.
Explain to me the actual like practical difference. I'm being funny, but there's kind of yes, kind of not one.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
So Ko goes on to reiterate after Grahatia says, I want to go with you. I will accompany you. You'll need every extra weapon you can get. Ko's like, I cannot permit that. Your role in this ends once the gates open. I understand your disappointment, but the same blood that makes you as useful as the key will make you a hindrance. Unlike the Crystal Tower, there's no need for Eureka to inspire hope. Alec is gone, its inheritor's long dead. I wish for the Empire's deeds, no matter how unsavory, to be beholden with eyes unclouded by legacy, that they may be judged for what they were. Naturally, I should offer the help all I can muster, and you are free to take any spoils you find. I knew you would find the scent of adventure irresistible, but I thank you nonetheless. Drink your fill of secrets and buried sin.
So when are we going to take him on an adventure, huh? Poor
This
guy.
is two adventures we've skipped on.
Poor guy. Isn't this an anime meme? This is a
Yes.
This is an established trope.
Do elaborate.
There's the adventurer's protege who gets to miss out on all the adventures, even though the narrative tells you that his only desire is to join on an adventure. It just keeps happening and happening and happening. It's just the senpai notice me problem.
Sorry, for some idiot reason, I just thought back to Police Academy.
Yes,
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do.
So he waits the entire movie to get into a shootout, and then the shootout happens and he misses it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. That's the one.
Wow, we just showed our age.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's okay. That's why we get along.
So we go in, yeah?
So we go, and here we are. The Rambros has furnished me with all the manpower I requested. The researchers of Sons of St. Konak Stand ready to organize your expeditions. As for my part, I have managed to offset the magical limitations of this vessel with my knowledge, procuring 2 tools that should be of great use to you. First, armor. You see, in the special days before the fourth calamity, the researchers of Orthos fortified it with the wards to enervate the faculties of any intruders. Even the most masterful weapons are rendered useless if they cannot be swung. To overcome this, I have imbued a set of armor with the opposing wards, which should nullify the effect. Second is a handy little device called a demi-clone generator. As its name implies, it is capable of creating near clones. Such clones, while imperfect, were often used in experiments. If you come across tombstones containing data on such experiments, the generator can make use of them. Furthermore, while the aether of the clones dissipates as quickly as vapor in a hot beaker, an extra hand or two may prove useful in pulling you from a perilous situation. These basically work like the boons and buffs that you get in the other deep dungeons.
But significantly less effective than summoning a
They're
demi-primal.
kind of like the, yeah.
Yeah, I do want to address the topic of clones and Allegan. So,
to take it away.
They're basically like crappy familiars. Like they don't have souls, and most of the time they're not even really capable of free thought. So the idea of we just make these clones and we melt them down basically is a lot less horrifying when you realize they're probably not even aware of what's going on. And the only reason that Emmett Celt clone and Doga Une are self-aware is because their souls actually possess their clones. So
they're very high-tech shells.
Still shitty familiars.
It's kind of the same thing, really.
I mean, when compared to the ancients. So the ancients would look at that and be like, well, that's pretty shitty when I can just snap my fingers and I have a familiar that's way more capable than this thing you made. which is why I assume Emmett Celt called it entertaining.
Oh, no doubt.
So we go in, and it's a maze. It is not a constantly changing, we'll say, because it is changing. I mean, the other ones, they do change no matter how many times you go into them. It's not a floor that you go up or down on. It's a literal maze.
Yeah, so I always got the vibe of the movie Cube from Deep Dungeon, but never more so than in this Eureka.
Me too.
I'm glad you know what I'm talking about.
I only watched a little bit of it.
The first one is a great movie. I highly recommend it. But it very much reminds me of like the floors changing constantly and there's traps in the rooms and all this stuff.
How much of this is just a simulation that they've chosen as a game design element rather than what we might expect as the canonical representation of these floors? Because we do have this design in 3 different areas that are completely unrelated.
And it's very much the same if you really think about it. That's a good point, actually.
I assume these are more like, if we could really go in a non-gaming environment situation, they might be more similar to the Etherochemical Research Facility.
Very much so.
But the final set of floors that we get to does actually change in a way that looks like very Allegan. The first set of floors, to me, didn't strike me. It's like with the deep dungeon. As you get deeper and deeper, you get a different aesthetic as you progress.
Yeah.
You have any impressions on this stuff, Cobe? Because you've been farming Etherpool, right?
I have. I've been kind of living on floor 20 to 30. And yeah, I feel like the top levels they're very deep dungeony. It's very much like a generic Allegan dungeon, but then as you go deeper, you do start seeing more of the Allegan technology, and a lot of the monsters that you encounter are more Allegan in nature. So 20 to 30, you run into a lot more of the Allegan machinery as opposed to organic clones
Yeah,
and
which we will get
monsters.
to in a little bit because it gets better and better as it goes along.
Yeah, and I do want to say that I have to believe that that Eureka was also trapped in stasis when the Crystal Tower had its time stop spell, whatever, because I can't imagine all of these creatures and machines surviving down here for 5,000 years without any food or that's all I got.
That's okay.
I was struck a bit by. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I think we should talk about it a little bit. With the other deep dungeons, you had a little sort of micro story as you progressed, especially Palace of the Dead. You had enough cutscenes that there was a little bit of a mystery as you were climbing. In Heaven on High, you got one at the end of every 10 floors, and it wasn't huge or particularly impactful as a narrative device, but this one is very heavy on exposition, and then you get a cutscene at the beginning and the very end. And I don't know if I like that, honestly. I feel like they cut some corners here.
I don't disagree. And to be frank, from a development standpoint, I feel like the Endwalker patches have been, how do I put this in a way that sounds precise, but also not thoroughly insulting? Uh, skimpy, if that
They
makes any
haven't been as
sense.
beefy. Yeah.
Yeah, like what we're still getting the
There's a
same.
lot of robustness to.
Yeah, we're still getting a lot of the same kind of content, but it's not as deep.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. That seems accurate.
So usually we get, a certain width and depth of content. Now we're just getting the width, but not so much the depth.
I think I commented on something like this last week where I wanted to, sort of thank the devs for giving us a lot of experimental content. We have Criterion dungeons, we've got variant dungeons, we've got this deep dungeons here, we've got the island. We're getting Blue Mage. I mean, you see what I mean. There's a lot of this side content, but we've been having trouble with the day-to-day stuff that really keeps you engaged. And even the raiders are starting to drop off now because it's just not there. There's not enough to keep you there every day. And so the game is very much becoming a sort of patch and dip situation, which I really don't like to see. I want this to be my main hustle, but I've been very much playing other titles lately.
Same. And the Loperates were great for 23 days, and now everyone's done, and no one's dancing at the rave anymore.
Tragic.
I still am. I haven't finished yet, and that should say something because I'm usually front and center with the beast tribes, with the tribe quests.
But I do
So back on
appreciate
the
the lore
topic.
dump. But yeah, back to the actual deep dungeon. Huh? Go ahead.
Yep. So for those who have finished the level 30 quest, what did you think of it?
The part,
I'm trying to remember.
the
Took
part
a few
that stuck,
screenshots.
the part that stuck out the most to me was when Ko said, "Oh yeah, thanks for clearing this one. There's tons more all over the place."
Yeah.
Have fun. Go to floor 100.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like we were supposed to just go to floor 30 and that was it.
So, I mean, should we just... or did you want to discuss floor 30 itself? I mean...
Go ahead.
It's kind of
let's go ahead.
This I actually wasn't expecting. I was very careful not to spoil myself too much. I've seen images. It's not a perfect thing. But as for 1 through 30, I tried to just get in there when I was able to and not look at content. But for anyone who hasn't done it, I don't know why you're watching the podcast today, but welcome. But floor 30, the boss, is a clone of our favorite dragon up at... oh, my brain is failing.
When
Well, so now flying free, but yes.
Oh, Jesus, brain. Azislaw. So yeah, sorry, my mic's acting up a bit.
It's all good. Filling dead air with noise.
Yep.
That's not
We're
how
still
you do
alive.
it.
But yeah,
There we go.
That was-
Okay,
that
so
was very
yeah, so
surprising to see.
the end boss of this floor 30 is a clone of Tiamat, which of course she was held captive, but until we got this narrative reveal, I just sort of assumed naively that she was just held captive up there in Azislaw and wasn't really messed with. But of course they took her DNA and cloned her, and so we have Tiamat's clone just sitting underground here in the Crystal Tower for thousands of years after the war with Mericidia. Interesting boss.
crazy.
I mean, when I saw the cutscene reveal, I was a little bit surprised. I actually did have a little bit of a gasp, like, "Oh, what's going on here?"
I was very surprised. I had not
I didn't
been spoiled at
anticipate
all.
that either.
But I was surprised, but it made perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course they're doing these experiments. I also I don't know if we could talk about this a little bit, but I enjoyed the exposition about Noah being the specific stuff about her being the teacher for Doga and Une. I really liked that arrangement and relationship, and it's been a few weeks, but I'm pretty sure she said that she was way more of a tech genius than our little Fandaniel guy over there.
Yep, until she got sucked into a crystal.
Yeah, apparently intentionally, but not according to the entry, right?
It
Yeah,
kind of
not
sounds to
according
me like
not
one of those
according
things
to-
where you're like, yeah, I definitely meant to do that. I don't know why you'd question that.
Yes, exactly that. Like I do not trust anything that comes out of Go's mouth. I take it all with a grain of salt.
So if we're going through the boss 1 through 30, I'll go ahead and go over also the floor 10, floor 20, floor 30. We already know. So floor 10 was the little creature that we saw in the trailer, the one with the buggy eyes and the head.
Oh yeah.
The synthetic vegetable.
Yes. It's called Gang Cow. Gan Canal.
Got a mouthful.
Yeah, well, GANCANAGH.
Thanks, I hate it.
And it has an attack called Mandra Shock too. So it's like a mechanical Mandragora.
You love mandragoras, right?
No, I don't actually.
This was fun. There was a little bit of exposition about the Mandragora boss, where it was a sort of prototype weapon that would burrow underground and surprise enemy contingents. You just go poof up through the ground and sort of mess everything up. Right, exactly. Of course, the Mandragoras they pop up all over the place, from treasure hunt maps to Lenosia in the field. They're all over the place. And I don't know. It's kind of silly that they made a weapon based on the Mandragora, but hey, Alligans.
Alligans. Boss number 2 on the floor 20 is a cloning node. It is basically a sphere, and which it spawns shield dragons with flame breath, and it's just basically an ad boss. A lot of ads, but you can expect that from a cloning node. Floor 30, obviously, Tiamat clone. It's not as scary as Tiamat would be should we fight her, but
Still pretty tough.
way more.
I think that fight was more intimidating than it was tough.
There's just a lot of moving parts as well.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 'cause the couple times I've done it was late at night.
I will say I cannot imagine soloing it.
Yeah.
She has an attack called Waymorn, W-H-E-I, Morn. Person will randomly be targeted by the boss. Series of circle AoEs will appear and follow the target person. Wait for the first AoE to appear and then stand far away enough for it to avoid being hit. No one should be in the path of the attack.
Yep. Drag it over the tank.
Don't be in the way. Be here all week, folks.
Where's the pun dog?
Anyways, after that, we have a second quest to complete. We go back to Ko. You are returned and with no grievous wounds that I can discern. Yeah, right. I take it that means you are proven equal to the task of plumbing Eureka's Orthos' depths? Were we a plumber to begin with?
Super
I
Mario
mean,
joke?
I think the Warrior of Light has been a plumber the whole time, honestly, in the sense of fixes leaks.
Leaks from other shards.
So we go on, we call Graha, he comes running, of course. Ko, here's our report, and goes, a clone of Tiamat, one of the first brood. When Zonde began his quest of the southern continent, the dragons which held dominion over the region offered fierce resistance. Thus was every available resource poured into creating a species of worm which would bend to Allagan will. Once Tiamat and her kin were captured, they were used to hasten the subjugation of dragonkind. The many clones born from this research were also used as fodder for a different project, which aimed to perfect the means by which Bahamut would be used to power Dalamud.
So this is
That's
telling
an
us that the
interesting
clones in the turns of Bahamut, the dragons rather, are clones, not captured beings. Is that how you read
That
this?
was the
That's how I read
impression
it.
I got from it. Yeah, I
A
found
little
this
bit of
past-
ethical
I found
retcons
bit
in this
very
patch.
interesting.
Everything
Yeah.
from Ko and Noah being consensual arrangement to these were actually soulless clones somehow worshipping, growing
Yeah.
Bahamut to planetary proportions. I don't know.
Allag is bad.
But not that bad, apparently. I'm kidding.
I'm just reminded of Emmett Selk's line, paltry though it seems compared to Allag.
Oh,
Yeah.
Poor Garlemald.
Ko goes on. Graha muses about a few things, but Ko goes on to say, is that compassion in your voice towards Tiamat? My, how times have changed. Graha was there when we freed Tiamat, and Tiamat mused over Bahamut's death and how he suffered. I know not the deeds carried out in Eureka Orthos. When looked through your eyes, I imagine they might not paint the Empire in the most monogamous of lights. No. Yet, as an Allagan myself, I cannot say that at the time they were not only a symbol of our eminence, but as a means of our survival. Perhaps you just think we went too far? Yes. Before
See,
rushing...
It is interesting because it's a little bit of the same relative morality thing
That's
going
right.
on, where it's like our
Mhm.
culture was very, very different, and this was considered okay. And we look at it with an absolutist sense, and we say, "Yeah, y'all were messed up," but it wasn't necessarily due to malice. Again, like it's always a thing that we discuss anytime morality comes up. How much do you make an account for society around? Be like, well, other like, yeah, it can get sticky. It can get very sticky. So I totally get when people look at it and say, oh, well, you know, it was just kind of like that. And I also get when people are like, do better.
But it's all in the past, you know?
Yes.
Yeah. And I do agree with this sense that, you know, this is very relativistic morality. They built their entire society to function around this. And it then became a question of, well, do we give up everything we know, or do we, you know, fix this one thing? And it's
And then the
not
next
even that
one
big
thing.
of a deal.
And then the next one
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah, exactly. Where does it end?
At the heat death of the universe.
Before rushing to judgment, allow me to remind you that civilization thrives by bending nature to its will. Elegant science is but one manifestation of this inevitability. None would bat an eye to see a river dammed to prevent flooding. We breed plants and animals with the intent to make the next generations hardier for our own benefit, not the subjects. I'm interested to hear your opinion, what impression Eureka Orthos has left upon you. So yes, exactly what we were just saying.
This line brought to my mind something that happened in real life during my lifetime, all of our lifetimes, and it's unfortunately it's very Western centric judgment. We've done plenty of things in the U.S. for environmental or energy reasons that kind of conflict with what a lot of people would think is like the best possible ethic. But the one that is reminding me here, I'm being reminded of here, is when the was it the Yellow River in China that was dammed for the power stations, and the result was the result of their decision was that they flooded all of their ancient ruins along the riverbanks. And as someone who is
I believe so.
really interested in archaeology and stuff, even though it's not my culture, right? But as far as like human heritage goes, I always really am sad when something happens to something ancient that we're lucky to even have. And
Absolutely.
so that happened, and then I remember when ISIS was a big deal, maybe 10 years ago, and they were destroying a lot of Roman and Greek sites in that region. And I'm pretty sure that the Lion Gate was destroyed.
I remember that.
There's a lot of stuff like that. You just can't get it back. And, the world marches on, and, we go around the sun and time progresses. But there's just some things that make me sad when we lose them. But yeah, I mean, they needed power, right, is the point. So they decided to dam the river, and now they have energy. So where's the line? It's hard to make a judgment from the outside, and I think that's sort of what they were trying to teach with Co here. Not that we have to agree with her, but kind of the relativism, I think, is leaning in that direction. Try to get to perspective.
I will say that this is a thread that we actually don't see too often in 14, which is very much the Final Fantasy VII parallel, where you have the energy of life being used to power a society.
Right, yeah, the Mako reactors and the life stream being used as fuel to improve lives.
Right.
And where's the line? Well, in Final Fantasy VII, the line is when the weapons wake from their slumber at the Great Crater and go on a worldwide rampage.
They went too far. Rufus, if it wasn't for Rufus, they would have trashed everything, ruined all of humanity.
Absolutely. Yeah, so Rufus, anti-hero.
No, Rufus didn't save the world. He saved humanity, but humanity is ruining the world. That's kind of the point. Which is more
but the world
to
belongs to humanity, so it's fine.
Well, not if they can't keep it.
It'll be fine.
It'll be fine.
We'll just, use our grandkids to power the toaster.
Oh my god.
That's so accurate, it hurts.
It's kind of a little too real, but not in a bad way.
Anyways, going back to it.
Yes.
Let's see here. Going back over the text. Graha asks, was there some manner of the impending catastrophe that you hope to prevent by clearing the laboratory of threats? And it's interesting that Graha says this, because he did the same. And Co replies with, oh, wasn't anything so noble as that? Naturally, with no researchers to maintain them, the remaining experiments would succumb to the march of time. Again, time fuckery. I knew this would be my final chance to share them with another, to share what Alag's researchers wrought. Their endless experimentation produced the answers to questions few thought to even ask. And now, in a way, their work shall live on. My time in Eureka Orthos was merely a diversion, but my pupils devoted heart and soul to their research, knowing that their fate and the fate of the nation depended on their success. Graha goes, your pupils were here? I heard the Archmagus guided the education of the Imperial family, so when you speak of your pupils, that can only mean... Drumroll, please. Doga and Une, the direct descendants of Emperor Zande. They agreed to be cloned, that they might serve the Empire forevermore. I wanted the world to know what their sacrifice gave us, how they spurred the advance of technology further than any before them. Thank you for going along with my selfish requests. If you allow me to offer another indulgence, I would like you to dedicate the expedition to the memory of those children and their fallen homeland. Thank you. Now let's move on to lighter matters. It's not the Eureka isn't the sole repository of Allegan ingenuity. Other facilities similarly dot the realm. We didn't know this. Should you stumble upon one during your adventures, do not hesitate to venture into its halls. Great.
Wow, thanks.
Yeah, so I took this as a incentivization through narrative and dialogue to go check out floor 100, but that's not really what she's saying. What she's saying is there are other facilities around. Have fun.
I took this as we're gonna make more deep dungeons later myself.
Maybe.
This isn't the last one.
Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah.
And see, it's another kind of drop that is like, do you like it? Would you like to see more Allegan facilities, or would you not like to? Would you like something original, or would you like something more of the same?
Personally, I'd like something original, but if it is Allag, I want to go somewhere else.
Yes.
I want to see more stuff that kind of. I know that this empire is not based on Final Fantasy V, but I kind of want to have more like high tech in the sky situations. If anybody's played 5 and knows what I'm talking about, like the ancient empires in that game are very cool and very, very different from the society that's currently existing.
I want to run into the Allegan space colony.
Sure, yeah.
That would be
because
awesome,
there is one.
honestly.
Yeah,
Yep.
there definitely is one.
Gotta be, right?
They had space travel. We saw their spaceship on the moon.
Yeah, it's just hanging out. Little surprised it crash landed.
Yeah, well, it crash landed right after the calamity. So it was just floating around for 5,000 years. And there is a communication network that is an interstellar communication network built by the Allegans. So why would they have that unless they were trying to communicate with someone?
Yep. Wouldn't be a whole lot of point.
Yeah, Cass says in chat, not sure how the story would make it work, but I loved the current Alliance raids, meaning Aglaya, that kind of series, and would love to see a deep dungeon of that. I agree with you, Cass. We've talked about this when this Aglaya stuff was announced. We thought that maybe they would have a section of it over at the Sanctum of the 12, the wedding chapel. I would love to see a deep dungeon that just goes down whatever tunnels are beneath that lake there. That would be really cool.
Oh, I agree. People are having their romantic moments upstairs. Meanwhile, people are dying down below. I was like, that's a great contrast, just alone.
That's life.
But diving into like the 12 and really flushing them out. Like the raids are good. We're getting answers for the 12, but like I want more.
I thought Answers was more of a Bahamut thing.
Just waiting for that. Thank you, Neela.
Don't judge me. I'm working on UCOB with my team right now, so I've been hearing Answers a lot recently.
Nice.
I mean, that's a good sign. That means we're making it past the second phase. Woo.
Ultimates.
Yep.
Ultimates. We get excited when we get 6 minutes in the fight.
Ko goes on to say, allow me to offer you my thanks once again. Your efforts have seen a long-held wish of mine fulfilled. And while you have no more obligation to me, Eureka reaches deeper still into the earth. On the lowermost floors, the most volatile experimentations were carried out. I cannot, in good conscience, suggest you delve deeper, but if riches and adventure are what you seek, I can think of no other place. If you find aught of interest, I promise to share with you what I know of its history. That is, of course, assuming you survive.
Ha ha.
And that's when it's the actual further floors are named Eureka Orthos Forgotten Depths. So when you go up to 30, floor 30, that's when the story ends. But you can progress further, and I don't know whether you consider it canonical or not, but going through the later floors, because the next quest text is going to come after floor 100. So we go through 30 through 40. We then start to see a few they go from machinery to organic life forms. And then we start to see chimeras, lamias, and more interestingly enough, Mericidian creations.
Oh, I
That's
forgot
not
about that.
surprising.
Still interesting though.
It is.
Like it's very much, you know, we study our enemy in order to defeat them, you know.
Well, they basically wanted to take their enemy and turn it into the weapon against their enemy.
True.
So yeah, which
We've seen this.
kind of did with Bahamut.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, we've seen this urge and path with the Omicrons.
We have, except they were way, way more aggressive in nature.
Yeah. Adopt. Adapt. Conquer.
They are literally the prime example of what AI will do when given soul and mind. Floor 40, we get a Twintania clone. And yes,
Another one.
yes, they still have Twister.
God
At least
damn
I'm
it.
good at it.
And it will instantly kill you, instantly kill players who step into it. So follow the same protocol to move out of it like you did before.
Caspar, then Wiggle.
Boss on floor 50, the servo-mechanical Chimera 14X. It's basically a chimera with... Actually, it's not a chimera. Because chimeras, at least in a lore perspective, are just fusions of a lion and a snake. This one is like a fusion of a mechanical dragon and a snake and that dragon's head. There's no lion involved. So if you want to see the picture, just kind of look up servo-mechanical chimera. It's really wild. It like has a mechanical body and a purple dragon head with a bronze dragon head as well on its left side. Right side if you are specific.
Looks like a very proto Ultima weapon.
Yes. Floor 60, the Servo Mechanical Minotaur 16. This one actually looks like what it's described. It's a Minotaur, except with mechanical augmentations. It had on this right arm, it literally has a giant mechanical right arm, and I would assume that its legs have become mechanical as well. The only organic part of it would be its midsection and its left arm, but they are both also augmented.
If I recall correctly, these are a roaming enemy in the upper floors of Heaven on High.
Interesting. It's always fun to try and figure out, like, is this just, oh, we had to, you know, get the model from somewhere, or are they doing a subtle nod here?
Yeah, it's hard to know if it's, I mean, I don't want to be rude, but it's hard to know if it's lazy or if this is just where they were developed and it's narratively convenient that they're here. It's still really cool. I'm not upset about it, but
Yeah.
it's hard to know.
I mean, Final Fantasy games have done this
A lot of
forever
assets.
because it's required. You cannot create every enemy afresh. You just don't have the time.
The floor 70 boss is Aeterna. It is a tiger with mechanical apparatuses attached. The same as before, it's not all organic. It has mechanical parts attached, mechanical augmentations. Boss on floor 80, the Proto-Kalia. Those who have done not turn 9, it was... No, I gotta think. Those who have done Kalia before, we'll just say that because I can't remember all the way through my turns here which one it was on. it's the same thing. It's Kalia with a little less mechanical enhancements on it. They basically, what they did is they just cloned Kalia and left it at that. And it has the same right and left starboard larboard nerve gas.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's turn 11.
There you go.
Huh.
Floor 90 is the administrator. And it looks like a very, very neon version. If you remember the last boss of my luck as well, the winged creature. It looks like that,
yeah.
only with, if it were all black with neon green feathers. Very, very cool. Beautiful look at. But that is the administrator. And now we're getting really, really, really high up in, or I shouldn't say high up, but really, really deep down in Eureka. So we're seeing more servomechanical orthotars. We're seeing sphinxes. Basically the same thing that you would normally see in like the Aetherochemical Research Facility or Neverreap. Not Neverreap. Is it? No, there's a fractal continuum. There we go.
That's right.
Boss on floor 99 is the one we really, really like, though. So on floor 99, we come across the weapon that Ko was talking about earlier. And I said this earlier, for those that remember the Bosnia content, and those who have done it all the way through and have done the Dalriada, you remember at the end where we fought the Diablo armament. I actually have a picture in the live chat for you. And it was called the Allegan Harrier, the Diablo armament, the Allegan Harrier. And it was basically a mechanical shell or a mechanical weapon that the Allegans used to hold Void Scent in. And this specific one, the Diablo armament, was used to house Diablo. Ebolas. And so it looks very similar to that of the Diablo armament. Fao, are you able to pull it up?
Yeah, 1 second.
Yeah, this part actually, like, I'm like, how many times do we need Diablo? Also, I'm confused by it. It's interesting though, because like the timeline confused me, but I find it interesting beyond that.
So the Excalibur, it's called Excalibur. The weapon is called Excalibur. It is a recurring weapon theme, recurring weapon name in Final Fantasy, and it's used to describe usually the most powerful one-handed weapon sword that you can get in the game. Usually. It is sticking out of the creature's chest. That one we'll get to. It's the one beyond that. The next one.
I don't have a next one.
And there you go.
Okay.
That thing. So it has the same black and green kind of wings and motif that the Diablo armament has. Which we can now, we're 2 for 2 now on weapons that the Algans have created. So we can assume, I guess we can assume from here on out that the weapons that they spoke of in the Bosnia quest line, we're going to find a lot more of these because it was mentioned by the 4th Legion. Excalibur is sticking out. The actual weapon is sticking out of the weapons chest. and it wields a sword and shield. Now, Excalibur in the game, there's also another Excalibur in the game, and that is the Excalibur that is forged during the initial Realm Reborn Relic quest line. And it has the same model, except a lot more tarnished, a lot dimmer.
Makes sense.
Yeah. And it can go, for those that have done it before, it can go up to Excalibur Zeta, Excalibur, so on and so forth. I think there you go. Yep. So that is what you find when you defeat Excalibur. And man, basically you just kind of sit there and get to look at the model where it's housed. Now, I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting some kind of other kind of like lore drop or what have you. But it's the quest text that they mention after you leave that it catches. Does anyone have thoughts before I go into it?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it.
So after you leave and you defeat Excalibur, you go back to Ko, and she says, I understand your desire for plunder and hidden knowledge has won over your survival instincts. I'm dying to know, what awaited you at the bottom of Eureka? So it really was there. You stood against Excalibur and lived to tell the tale. Haha, to think that I ever feared for your safety. Amon himself would have been hard-pressed to match your bravery. If only you knew.
It is funny that we never just tell her, like, yo, you know that guy, like... We know that guy.
He existed, He still exists, kind of. Well then, as I promised, I shall share with you the final scrap of lore I have to offer you. Listen well, for even among the researchers of Eureka, this was a guarded secret. But perhaps a stroll would add to the proper gravitas to the story. Besides, there is much to tell, and I would rather not stand here where my legs cramp and my mouth becomes parched. So walk with me. Hearken to the tale of the sword Excalibur and the man who became its slave. As you are doubtless well aware, a major subject of the Allegan research were the icons, or as you know them, primals. We remember this from Owen back in 5.5. He did research on this. One among them stood apart. It has the power to work dreams, no matter how outlandish, into reality. It was sealed deep within Eureka to hide it away from those who would misuse it. Researchers were even forbidden to speak its name, as if that would erase all trace of existence from the world. In time, this verboten icon forged a weapon of spectacular power. The icon actually created a weapon whose creation left several aether streams dissected, never to give life again. So it cut several life streams apart. But I am reminded of days as a teacher, when my pupils would doze off despite the gravity of the facts being laid out before them. Perhaps a change in scenery would freshen things up. Yes, let us walk. Before I go on, any thoughts?
Sounds like every teacher ever. But
now, where was I? Oh yes, Eureka's icon was instrumental in the development of the Allegan trigger weapons, the Allegan Harriers. Meant it was only to be wielded by those deemed worthy. These armaments would make summoning an icon a simple task. The chosen wielder need but hold the weapon aloft, and the divine strength would be at her beck and call. Without the use of the specialized materials such as auracite, again, the mention of auracite, the manufacture of trigger weapons should have been impossible, and yet Eureka's icon managed to do the same. Excalibur, as you have no doubt concluded, was one of the fruits of that endeavor. As to what became of this all-powerful icon, it was transported somewhere far away in the days preceding the Fourth Umbral Calamity. The researchers knew that the rebels were drawing in, and keeping the entity's powers out of their clutches was the top priority. And this is where my research and knowledge of the matter ends. While it is entirely possible that the icon slumbers in some hidden cloister even now, when waiting to grant the wishes of those who would dare awaken it. Even if it were not, and the icon was unleashed upon the realm once more, I have no doubt you would lay it low before its powers were used for evil. It's still...
Ayumi's been possessed.
Yeah, it's still out there, basically. So you believe you may have already bested this entity? Well, I suppose I should not be surprised. My mouth is getting really, really dry.
Are they talking about the
Drink
High
water.
Seraph here?
It's a good question, actually.
Yes. And I was about to go into that.
Good. We
I
need
couldn't
more
resist.
closure on that.
I just couldn't resist. I'm like,
So you believe you may have already bested this entity, which yes, that single line ties Evilise into this, which means Bazia is into this as well. Well, it already was because of the trigger weapons.
Yeah, the trigger weapons. It's a new name, but we saw the weapons at the end of the Bazia
Dalriada.
story. Dalriada, thank you.
And that's pretty much where the ending text of the quest ends. But use that one line, that singular line, oh, I may have already bested it. If you think back to the Evilise quest line, the way that Ultima, the High Seraph, worked was she manipulated the thoughts and dreams of those who followed her. And she used them she did that through the use of aura sight. During the Orban Monastery raid, she was manipulating the use of it with... you remember she had aura sighted at basically her feet at the end, correct?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
she was just shitting it up.
And pretty much she was just kind of coercing us into thinking, everything can be yours, you need but only ask. And then she would control us through the use of aura sight. So yes, the entity of which Ko was speaking refers to Ultima, the High Seraph, which also ties in the time period of which the Alligans and the city-state of Dalmasca would have been coexisting. Because we were unaware and unsure of when that time period was, when it happened. Let me see. There's another thing. I know I have more. Fill the dead air. I'm looking.
Well, I wanted closure on this, but it's such a throwaway line. How dare they? I want more. More.
It's still interesting that they tied this over to that, though.
We knew they
Both
had to
to
close the
make
loop
sense.
somehow, right? I mean, we've had the data on the Calamity, and I mean, since Shadowbringers, we've had this stuff with the deeper stuff with Bazia, the Dalriada.
Yeah.
So
Do you find it satisfying? Like, I'm not
Not
sure
really.
how I feel about it. I'm still thinking about it. It's like, yeah, it ties it up. I'm like, what is that?
I don't find it satisfying. I don't think.
Yeah.
I think it's not quite enough. I mean, we have Queen Gunhildr, we have the Auracite weapons, we have the time period.
Mm-hmm.
So also,
it's just two sentences. I mean,
Yeah.
also going back, I totally missed this. I'm glad I brought it up. Going back on it, you remember that the Zodiac weapons or the relic weapons in A Realm Reborn were based on the weapons wielded by the Zodiac Braves,
Yeah, for sure.
Yep,
which
that's correct.
which were the legends of the when Dalmasca was a city-state. They fought against Ultima the High Seraph, and they prevailed.
There is a little bit of a twist here, though, and I was actually thinking about this before I blurted it out about Ultima, but Neoconia mentions that it sounds like a reference to old Eureka. The Eureka Primal did craft weapons of immense power, including Zantetsuken, and there were bosses like Raiden in the Baldezinion can't speak, Arsenal raid. So, I mean, there is a primal in there that's responsible for creating weapons just ready to go. And so I guess it doesn't necessarily have to be Ultima, but the time periods match up, and the High Seraph is just dripping in Auracite. So this dialogue here mentions Auracite, and it mentions the weapons, and so that's what lent me to that, made me lean in that direction.
Makes sense.
Basically, there was a. Let's see here. I'm going over my facts again.
In chat, Neoconia says, but the dialogue here says it managed to do it without Auracite. Obviously, yeah. But maybe without crafted Auracite that's done by the scientists. Any of you have a take on this?
Auracite is already such a weird and kind of confusing subject. I'm certain that there are different kinds and they're all called kind of the same thing, which adds to the confusion. But I find it a little. I look at Auracite and I sort of just heave a sigh and I'm like, okay, which way are we taking it this time?
It says, meant only to be wielded by those deemed worthy, these armaments would make summoning an icon a simple task. So the only weapons that we have that summon icons are really Auracite weapons. And none of the weapons in Eureka technically summon an icon, unless you're calling the boss entity like Raiden or Odin a primal. This is all very... help.
I mean...
Well, we know that, for example, Odin, the entity, is the sword possessing the individual that beat it last. That's how Zantetsuken works. And so I've been kind of taking the bosses in Baldesian Arsenal the same way, where this is just the last guy who picked up the sword. Too bad.
So there was a king. Do you remember the lore of Ilsabard?
Vaguely.
Do you remember the name Artorias?
Yes.
Sounds
from Dark Souls?
No.
Kidding.
Artorias was a king who united Ilsabard before the Allagans showed up. They took over, and he bowed to them and served as a general. This was fairly early in the history of the Allagans, though. Later on, he was one of the early clones in Amon's experiments, again made to serve as his general. But he got chummy with Phlegethon, and his friendly rivalry appeared in some power to him being a traitor. As it happened, Eureka's icon more or less stated to be the same from Stormblood's Eureka, creating all sorts of trigger weapons to summon icons. The kind we see in Baldesian Arsenal, as well as Save the Queen.
Well, there we are then.
Amon had assassins kill Artorias with Excalibur, and in the process bound him to the sword to create the trigger weapon's icon, which was then used to capture Phlegethon and get him brainwashed to join the Empire. Now, the question remains, was the weapon's association with Artorias a historical corruption, or did he wield a different Excalibur?
That is a good question, actually. Huh.
Because remember, the Zodiac Braves were the ones who fought against Ultima the High Seraph.
Hmm.
And yeah, this is the tie-in, right? I mean, Excalibur
This
is one of those weapons. I mean, we have all of the relics from ARR.
Yes.
And they're made in the image of the originals, all of them,
Yes, the
including
guy that we
Apocalypse,
talked
the tome, all of these.
Everything.
Yeah. So this would have
Everything
been
was made in the image of them.
So there's
So
still more
this is-
mysteries, at least.
Yes. It was a big, big lore drop, but we got it. I've spoken so much that my throat is really dry.
Well, it's
Drink
okay.
water, it's good for you.
It's okay. It's been good stuff.
We're almost at time anyway.
We are.
What now brings the question is, what about the Save the Queen weapons? Because now we know about the Zodiac Brave weapons. This kind of adds to them, but again, we've got the Bosnia quest line, which also adds to it. What happened to those weapons? Why are there more of them? For those, a spoiler for those that haven't finished the Dalriada and Bosnia storyline.
It's definitely weird, yeah.
I didn't do Baldessian Arsenal. Fau did, I know.
Yeah,
So
I did as well.
okay, you did. So what
Yeah.
weapons did you fight in the Baldessian Arsenal?
I remember an Odin type weapon. I remember.
Yeah, that's Raiden, and
yeah.
you get loot dropped. The chance to drop is a silver or pewter or white version of the Zentetsuken called the Shin Zentetsuken. It's a glamour, but it's also a canonical weapon in the game. Shin meaning
Mhm.
death,
I was gonna say, I've
so
seen
it's
that in other
supposedly
ones.
stronger, I imagine.
Interesting.
So yes, Eureka, the one in Stormblood, the Evilise storyline, the Bosnia storyline, and the Crystal Tower are all now connected thanks to Eureka Orthos.
Thanks, Eureka Orthos.
It makes
It's
me
actually
wonder.
cool,
It
but
makes
weird.
me wonder now if Artorias was one of the Zodiac Braves who wielded Excalibur.
Well, that's certainly what you read seems to indicate. I mean, it seems to indicate that
Yes.
his body was the host used to summon the primal Excalibur that we fight on floor 99, but the sword itself is the actual weapon.
Yes. And what I would assume is that Ultima the High Seraph would have manipulated that weapon in some way to kind of turn himself into a primal.
You know, this it's kind of making me think that the primal. I'm trying to go back to Baldesian Arsenal, right? Because we have mythical names like Owain, from the
Yes.
the
He studied the cloning technology like Amon did.
Owen,
also
but
still
but
made Owain,
Owain, as in
yeah.
from Arthurian legend,
Oh, okay.
is one of the bosses, and Raiden is one of the bosses. Absolute Virtue's in there, Proto-Ozma's in there. It's a place where they sealed away all these primal weapons that do kind of what Odin does. I've been talking about for years about how, before Endwalker, right? I mean, keep in mind, Charlene is the place that dunked an entire island into the life stream that appears on the other side of the planet, and that they built this entire structure, the Baldesian Arsenal Castle, which has a very, very, very Charlean spin to it. It looks more Charlean than anything else. So I always took it to be something that they built. But I'm just imagining collecting all these weapons from the Third Era, from Alag, and there was some question as to what on earth could Charlean do, right? before Endwalker came out? What are they up to? And I just had to remind people that just because they're not out busy conquering the world does not mean they aren't actually the premier technological society on the planet. So be a little bit afraid is kind of what I was trying to say. Like, don't think they're a bunch of pushovers just because they're staying out of the conflict. They built this island. They built this castle. They dunked the island. They captured all these weapons. That was my angle on this. And so now I'm trying to tie this into the lore dump we just got on Excalibur, and I'm not sure exactly how to place my thoughts on it.
So, putting our ducks in a row here, so to speak. Artorias was the king of Ilsabard before the Allagans showed up. They showed up. He bent the knee to them. The existence of Ultima the High Seraph is kind of the key thing here. Did Ultima the High Seraph show up before or after the Allagans came?
Yeah.
Because if they came before, that would mean Ultima may have already worked her magic into the sword, or at least that's a theory. And then, yeah, he was one of the early clones. He was one of the early clones for Amon, and made to serve as a general. And then Excalibur was created as a trigger weapon. So something is definitely
There's something sticking, right? Something that's not
something
quite.
is sticking because the Zodiac Braves wielded the weapons, Excalibur and the rest, right?
Yeah.
But Artorias was cloned, and the weapons used for the clone were different than that of the Zodiac Brave weapons.
Jokingly, I'm reminded of previous games where you could have like a game with Excalibur, or if you got unlucky, you might get Excalibur.
No, here we
which does
go.
like no damage.
Go reading back over it because I just confused myself. Eureka's icon, more or less stated to be the same from Stormblood's Eureka, was creating all sorts of trigger weapons to summon icons, the kind we see in Baldessian Arsenal, as well as Save the Queen. The two artifacts that got dug up but at the end of Bosnia, and the nifty sword called Excalibur. Excalibur was dug up.
Okay.
I should also note the weapons in BA. I just pulled up the information on it. The bosses are Art and Owain. And it says the areas are the first weapon is Orlazrak Containment Unit, and the second one is Mundurg Containment Unit, and then the final one, the third boss, Raiden, is the Shin Zantetsuken Containment Unit. So these are places where they're containing weapons, meaning that the weapons are Shin Zantetsuken, Mundurg, and Orlazrak. It's 2 spears and sort of Odin sword, and then after that you fight Absolute Virtue, and then you fight the Proto-Ozma. So the weapons are named, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yes.
These don't line up with the Zodiac weapons, but they're still this kind of weapon created from the Eureka Primal.
I still really like how all of this, it's, you can find the ties, but it still doesn't like completely match up, but it still does match up. Like you said, something is sticking and then some things aren't. Because the Save the Queen quest line has artifacts being dug up in Dalmasca, southern Dalmasca, in Damascus Inferior, yeah. And there is artifacts being created, or were being created at the Eureka itself by that primal named Eureka. And then now we have more being found in Eureka Orthos, a laboratory, a very deep, deep laboratory found beneath the Crystal Tower.
What's throwing me the most with this is still this high seraph business, because Bosja is all about these demi-primals. You know, it's all about the Lucavi. And so...
And Auracite. Auracite is one
Auracite.
of the focal points of the entire raid. Ultima was not of this star. She was not created here. She came to this star and then was given form and power by the prayers of the Church of Saint Tajora.
Yeah, I think the word we used, that she was primalized, like kind of converted
Yes.
into, rather than the other things that we've seen.
Yes. However, she was not like Omega and like Midgardsormr. She did not exist here initially. And then the best that I would describe her as would be our Genova.
Oh, for sure.
That's a good parallel, actually.
Actually, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And the funniest thing is that's a good parallel is because Genova does work dreams in 7. In fact, there in the Final Fantasy VII remake, there is a form of hers called the Genova Dreamweaver.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, I that is pretty much a overall coverage and thoughts of Eureka Orthos.
I think I'll
Nice.
probably
It's a lot there.
do a Floor
Yeah.
100 push at some point in the next month or two. Y'all are welcome to join me, either viewers or castmates. I would love to just have some people to roll with.
Yeah, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, I need some ether pool. I mean, as you all know, I've been playing a ton of other games. But, you know, it's still nice to get the lore dumps. I would like a little bit more gameplay rather than exposition somehow.
You want the systems updated rather than the
Yeah.
actual story because it already has a good story. We need the systems caught up
Yeah,
from
basically.
2011, 2013 to 2023.
It's good content. And if we had a field instance we could sink our teeth into, I'd probably be here. It's just we don't, and you know, you do it once and
Yeah.
that's it. So,
And you know what? That's okay. I kind of needed a break.
yeah, fair. I'm really enjoying myself elsewhere.
Yeah.
I hope you all are too.
Thanks,
Definitely.
Sukiyo. I'm gonna play the Genova theme whenever I fight Ultima now.
But you know what? I may take breaks from this game, but I always come back to it. It's still my main game.
Yeah. Yeah, same. It's just a matter of what's going on right now in the patch cycle.
Yeah.
You know, play Genova, the song, fine. That song is absolute fire. But when I first got through Orban Monastery in this game and I heard them rip Ultima Bloody Angel straight from Tactics, that got my blood pumping so quick. I was so excited to fight that boss.
Yeah,
That song is
no,
insane. Like, end of the world crazy. Take it very seriously insane.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it takes 4 millennia old heroic Lucavified heroes from Tactics to not shield you from Ultimate Illusion, which is clearly what the spell Ultima is developed from.
Yes.
And it's insanely more powerful. If you just look at the particle effects in the area, it's like a soul flame that's engulfing like a Madison Square Garden sized area, just firing through. And you have a little orb shield on your platform as she melts away the floor beneath you. But even so, that's not enough because the lower jaws pierce the area to create an inlet for the nuclear fusion power coming through, a channeled spell from the boss, and it melts away all of the Lucavi heroes. And you're still taking damage. You actually do have to heal that part of the fight, because the spell is so strong that the shield is kind of like one of our... It's stronger than this, but it's similar thematically to like one of our 15% area effect damage reduction spells. It's just not working. It's just not working.
Here is proof that Ultima is the one that I was talking about. I'll go ahead and read it off because this is the beginning cutscene to the fight, right?
Take it.
Is it Sanctum? If it's Sanctum, you see my wayward children, or perhaps is it power? That which lies at your feet, that blessed bauble, can grant you both. You need but will it so. Now take up your salvation and be gone. Mortal agency matters divine shall not be suffered. Those 3 sentences basically kind of give away that she is a dreamweaver through the use of Orthos, and she produces it.
I love the line. It always sticks with me, but I know it's a raid boss and we killed it fine, but just the narrative plug is just too strong when she shouts, "I am the only god."
It is good.
I am your mother. I am your maker.
I am
Iblis.
Yeah. And then we go into discussion of what in Alliance raids is canon. Because
right?
I mean, it's all integrated now. We have multiple Iblis is real in this game tie-ins, but
well, Nier can be canon no matter what universe you're talking about. Like it was established by Taro himself. It's like, well, the universe of Nier is bendable. You're literally jumping realities in the game itself, anyways. So
yeah, there's nothing keeping Nier from being part of this game.
No,
at all. And so as long as Final Fantasy XIV integrates it, then it's absolutely canon.
Yeah.
It just so happens that Stormblood created that which we see now today, later on.
I just want more on Ultima. I want to know what... I mean, we've got from the sculpture, the collector's edition thing, we've got that lore dump, but we don't have a whole lot of other stuff on it. It's just all this like secondary, third-hand information. Like it's the where and the when, because an entity that has those powers. It's like the discussion about the Asians. Like when you bring that toolkit together, what could they all have done? If you think like anime raid
there a
team,
reason
like
why, or was it just coincidence?
Right, exactly. Like you've got the Time Weaver, Nabrielis, you've got all the meteor and the fire and the ice and the darkness and the light, and you've got it all. I mean, if you had all these people at full power and you made them the protagonists of an anime or a video game, what could they accomplish? So along those lines, if you look at Ultima the High Seraph, I mean, one could imagine that, I could imagine, this isn't in the game exactly, but I could imagine the Alligans using Ultima as like the initial battery that creates like the first, that creates the Eureka Primal that is able to then create its own weapons. You see what I mean? Like the progenitor being, what is it? And it's very much possible that an entity that's just literally dripping aurosite crystals all day long, that's a pretty pretty useful crafting bench.
The use of aurosite was used in Ivalice pretty early on. It gave Bagamnon his wish to kill the Empire, if you remember. He went mad. He was beginning to see things, carrying around that aurosite. He saw us and our allies as members of the Garlean Empire, and he went mad. So yes, another proof, another example of the aurosite working people's thoughts, wishes, and dreams.
Twisting them too.
Which then, because we've talked about aurosite so much, now we get to bring into the discussion the 13th because they used Orthosite too.
Mm-hmm.
They did.
That's true.
Looks a lot different though, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Does.
the Memoriate crystals are, I don't know,
They're
maybe
not the
a type of
same.
no, they're like a type of man-made orosite, which
Yeah,
is interesting in its own right.
It is. I mean, with the Asians being involved with Alag, you know, in the timey-wiminess of everything. Where do you? When did this research begin? I don't know.
At least with
Would
this, we have a good idea of when Evilise existed. Because I think Cobron and I were under the impression that the 5th age, the 5th Umbral era, 5th Astral era, was around the time that heroes existed. Now with this, we can go a little ways back.
I was pegging 4th Astral Era for Evilise. So Evilise existed from 2nd Era, but the whole fight against Ultima, I peg as 4th Era. And that's specifically because the church was far more powerful in the 4th Era than it was in the 2nd. And it's far closer to how it was in Tactics.
Well,
But
when the
yeah.
Alligans are gone, I mean, there's a huge power vacuum, so it makes historical sense even that was the case. Not just the convenience of how they wrote it, but with Allag collapsing, yeah, I could see a new power taking over.
But yeah, that was our stream for Eureka today. We kind of went off topic at the end, but it all kind of runs together.
It's all connected.
It's all connected, man.
Don't believe Charlaine's lies.
Bring the red string.
That's right.
Anyway, I
next
guess
week we'll have a song. Yep. Next week we'll have songs again.
Yeah. We could either put out a poll as to which of the 3, or we could just pick one. But next week will be songs. I myself will be absent, visiting family this week, so I'm going to have to work full 8-hour shifts both Saturday and Sunday next week. But we'll probably be live for you guys. Thank you all for coming today. I hope you got some information out of it that is useful or enjoyable. And you can find us on Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and please join our Discord.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, everyone.
Take care.
Take care.